So here's the situation. You've started the school year, meeting with your team, talking about the big things that are coming up, the challenges you're going to be facing. You begin to ideate around what you as a team need to be doing, what's going to be expected of you from senior leadership. This is commonly how a lot of our goal setting processes begin at the start of the school year. But spoiler alert, you do not set goals at the start of the school year. The reason why is because we don't know what the next couple months are going to bring. We don't know who our students really are, what challenges they truly are going to be facing. We have ideas. Maybe we were lucky enough to have a handover from the teacher from the year before in some way that we can appreciate and understand the challenges that our students are going to be facing. Maybe we've been given during orientation some idea about the projects or the big things that are going to be happening on campus this school year, but we still don't know how it's all going to fit together. We need about a month or two to really begin to understand not just the challenges we're going to be facing, but how each of our team members are going to respond to those challenges. What type of capacity are they going to be having to actually tackle any goals? So now what I'm going to be introducing to you in this masterclass is about goal setting. Goal setting is a term that I use very loosely. And for leading effective teams for this particular masterclass, I actually don't like to call them goals. I like to call them outputs. And outputs, when combined, can contribute towards realizing some outcome. In this next 10 minutes, what I'll be introducing you to is really the process to not only define the outcome that we should be working towards as a team, but how we can actually realize that outcome over the course of 1 or 2 school years. So let's start exploring this topic by first looking at the big picture. Now, this is an image from my chapter 4, Hidden in Plain Sight, Realizing the Full Potential of Middle Leaders. What I want to really have my participants in my classes or my readers appreciate is that when you are trying to identify the purpose for your team from which you set goals, you need to be mindful of the school's guiding principles, its vision, its mission, its learning statements, as well as the strategic objectives that senior leadership has set out for us to achieve. We also have to be mindful of the fact that we're not just one team, we are several teams, all trying to align and contribute towards realizing those guiding principles, as well as achieving those strategic objectives. So alignment is incredibly important, not just at that big picture level with the school, but also down to the individual level. Understanding how what the school needs to achieve looks like at the ground level, from our teachers' perspectives in the classrooms. So when we articulate those big picture ideas, what does it look like for us in the classroom? Now, as a middle leader, your job is to try to marry those two, the reality on the ground with the expectations from above, and try to find the goals, not only for our team, but for our individuals and for us as leaders, that aligns it all the way top to bottom, bottom on up. Because the more we're aligned, the more likely we are to have buy-in throughout the whole school year, as well as to get the support we need from senior leadership for time and resources to actually realize the outcomes that we've set with our team. Now, here's a scenario that many of you will probably really appreciate. How often do we set goals with our teams at the start of the school year to find ourselves either pursuing them alone or just with a handful of people at the end of the school year? This happens because we did not properly align our goals, those at the personal level all the way up to the school level. We didn't get the necessary support and buy-in we needed to ensure that people were motivated to see them through, and more importantly, work interdependently towards achieving them. Now, when we start thinking about the outcomes, or what I'm going to call the purpose of your team, the purpose of your team is to achieve some outcome at either a short-term, mid-term, or long-term level. Now, for most teaching teams, I would say you're lucky if you can just focus on short-term outcomes. These outcomes are anywhere between 1 to 2 years, whereas the midterm outcomes are 2 to 5 years. Now, I say you're lucky because how long is your team going to be together? It could be just sufficient enough to focus on an outcome that's related to knowledge, attitude, skills, opinions, or just motivating the team through a school year. Much like what we're experiencing now with COVID-19, keeping people motivated could be a significant enough outcome for a team to realize. So when we try to identify the purpose of our team, make sure that the outcome is explicit. Once we identify what that outcome that we're working towards, we need to move towards what you'll find in chapter 9, establish a team purpose where that outcome is explicit. Now, how do we make this outcome that we're going to be achieving as a team real and bought into? Well, we need to make sure that it's infused with the values and beliefs of our team members, that the outcome that we're going to be working towards is supported by their values and beliefs. Those core elements of the teachers that are really going to motivate and influence them towards working towards this outcome together. Because if it is ingrained with their, what Michael Fullan calls a moral purpose, then we're more likely to be able to tap into that moral purpose throughout the school year, even during the most challenging times. With an outcome that is made explicit and it's tied to the values and beliefs of our team members, as well as our senior leaders, we can always remind people what we're working towards. And with that reminder, they can appreciate that, yes, this is why our team is together. This is why I appreciate working with these other members of my team. And yes, let me refocus and start working with you towards realizing this outcome. Now, when we infuse that outcome into our team purpose statement, we also want to capture those values and beliefs in the team purpose statement as well. What are the values and the beliefs that are explicit behind that outcome so that we as a team are also reminded of what's most important to each of us? The behaviors are also an incredibly important part of realizing our team purpose, but these are more commonly found in our group norms or our social contracts. These are the behaviors that we want team members to demonstrate that will contribute towards achieving that outcome. These are the behaviors that are ingrained in our values and beliefs that will help keep us motivated and influence us towards working towards that outcome as a team. When those behaviors are not demonstrated, it risks undermining our work as a team because it comes in the face of what team members' beliefs are related to good teaming. And these are such things as not just coming prepared to a meeting, but being able to put ideas on a table as well as take ideas off the table, making decisions when decisions need to be made, as well as not being afraid of judgment when we're sharing student data. With that team purpose established, now you're ready to move into setting goals. So I'm going to jump back to chapter 4 here for a minute, and here's another image from chapter 4. This is really what I like to think of as an outcomes machine. Here in this example, I've set inform effectiveness of instruction as our outcome. To realize this outcome, we'll take a number of outputs. I've identified 2 outputs here that we as a team need to achieve in order to realize this outcome. These outputs you can also call as goals. If we achieve these goals, they will contribute towards realizing that outcome. Now, to inform the effectiveness of instruction, there can be several goals or outputs that we're going to be working towards and that we will work towards throughout the year. I don't think it's sufficient enough to say that we need to set a goal as a team that's going to last a whole year. I think there will be several goals, and those goals are all aligned and contributing towards that one outcome. Now, when we take a look at goals, and I talk about SMART goals, we can have SMART goals for individuals, but it's not appropriate for a team. A team really needs to agree on its outcome, and then it can set goals that will contribute towards that outcome. The important thing in this is that team members then can set their own personal goals, such as common planning or moderation, that they are really passionate about and things that they really need to work on. And as they work on those things, they can inform other team members of their progress and share their learnings. In doing so, we're contributing towards the main outcome. Now, in terms of achieving those outputs, there might be processes that we don't have in place. So I would say to you that even though we've identified that common planning and moderation is something that's important towards realizing this outcome of informing effectiveness of instruction, if we do not have unit planning and assessment, we do not have processes in place that the team understands and is commonly using, then we can't achieve those outputs. So therefore, we need to take a step back, and maybe the outputs become establishing the processes. And in establishing those processes, we need to appreciate the inputs that are incredibly important towards producing those outputs. Those outputs being the products, being the common planning, being the moderation. If we as a team don't even have trust or a common knowledge or understanding of what we're trying to achieve, then I would say that that is the output, building trust, building a common understanding. And even something such as common understanding around assessment, that could take a full year to do. So appreciate not only what you want to realize in terms of outcomes as of a team, but where your team is at in its own development. And you set outcomes appropriate towards that team's level of development, as well as align it to not only what the expectation of the school is, but where the individual team members want to work towards improving themselves. And that is effective goal setting. And I hope that you can appreciate that it's not goal setting. It's actually about establishing a purpose where we've made the outcome that we want to realize explicit. And then we've set goals, or what I call outputs, that will contribute towards achieving that outcome. And those goals can be done at the personal level or the team level. They shouldn't be smart at the team level, but at the individual level, they still can be. And when we actually combine these outputs, that's how we actually realize the outcome. And lastly, just be very mindful of your team's capacity. Don't be overreaching for something when the processes aren't in place to actually realize it. You might have to take a step back and focus on developing those processes. And then in year 2 or even year 3, then pursue the greater outcome. The greater outcome is always going to be in mind, but let's be mindful of what we need to develop at this stage and take it step by step.